sweet friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all enjoying the merriest of holiday seasons, and I am so thankful that you have chosen to spend a little bit of your precious time with me. Today I'm answering viewer requests, and so many of you have reached out to me recently to ask about flower tutorials, and this seems like the perfect time to share some of my tips for working with flowers and making arrangements for your cards and projects. I kind of feel like I'm at the in-betweens, meaning I've already completed the Christmas projects that I want to create, but I'm still about a week away from moving on to Valentine's. So this is the perfect time to visit some back to basics that will help me to prepare when I'm ready to be crafty going forward. If that sounds good to you, then stick around and we'll make them together. I'm going to be sharing how I alter and use these pretty pre-made flowers. I've got my Magnolia flowers here, and these are from Really Reasonable Ribbon. And as you can see, they have a wide array of colors. There are more available than what I'm showing here. This is just what I have at the moment for my own personal stash. And I'm also going to be using these double head stamens, which are also from Really Reasonable Ribbon, to change the palette of these flowers to better match the projects I'm sharing. The first step in altering these flowers is to cut them away from the stems. And so I'm just going in as close as I can, right up to the base of that flower. So there are two ways you can consider changing these full blooms. And the first one is to remove the top layer of petals. And so this would be the center, the stamens there, and then that first flower. And so I'll just go ahead and do that. And you can see it's pretty easy to just pull it from the center, and that's going to pull that first full layer off. And this is going to give you a little bit of a flatter flower. So if you're making a large arrangement and you want to reduce a little bit of the bulk, then this would be the one I would choose. You can already tell the difference in the depth of these flowers just by pulling off that top section. I also want to consider leaving that top section on, but still removing that stamen. Now, I don't know much about magnolias, and it could be that yellow is the correct stamen color for these in the wild, but that doesn't tend to coordinate very well with my project. So I do want to remove that, and you can see that just came right out. If you want to, you can also reuse this smaller section that we pulled off by layering two of them and then also removing that center section. And so then you could have a larger and a smaller flower. It is helpful to have a crocodile, and I want to use the smallest setting here, and I'm going to go right into the center. I know it's difficult to see on camera, but I'm just punching where that hole is already. I just need to make it a tiny bit bigger so that I can work the stamens through that. Do that for both. For the larger flowers, I like to use 6 of the stamens. I match them up on one side so they're nice and even. Then I fold that in half and pinch the bottom portion here to make it as small as possible. Then I can work that through to the back of the flower. I'm pulling it all the way taut, and then I'll separate where those loops form so that I can clip that in half. Then I'll use this little scrap of paper and a little hot glue to adhere those stamen strings to the back of my flower. This is going to give you a really nice flat bottom for layering onto your cards. So the next step is obviously to cut off the excess. Just clean up a little bit of the mess here on the back, and I'm just going to cut all the way up to where that glue is. And this would be the flower with both of the remaining layers. You can kind of finger press these so that you can work out even a little bit more of that bulky dimension. But I think this is absolutely beautiful, and you would obviously mix and match the stamens with the flowers to coordinate with the project that you want to make. Let's do the same for this flower, and of course it will have a little bit less detail in the middle. I do think sometimes that is a little easier to layer if you are making a very full arrangement, because we have reduced quite a lot of that bulk. So I'll just use that same step of folding the stamens, pushing them through. I clipped the string. Adhere that to the back, and then clean that up just the same as we did for our first flower. So lately I have been creating arrangements with the same size of flower, just stacking 2 of them together rather than having a focus flower or focal flower and then adding smaller ones to the outside. So I'll do that for one of my cards today, and then one of my cards I'll also add the smaller flower. But you can see the difference there between that yellow stamen and then one that would better coordinate with your projects. I'm going to start with my standard 6x6 card, and before I get started, I will say that I am using dies to cut the foliage or the leaves, and I have worked for many brands in the past on their design teams, and I have been so fortunate to receive a lot of dies for flower making and leaves, and some of these are no longer available. If I can find a link to it, I will add it, but it's probable that I will not have that available. I did check on scrapbook.com, and I typed in leaf die as search, and 1900 options came up, and so I searched for probably 10 pages and I found many that were very similar. So if you're in the market for new dies, that would probably be the best place to search for those. I have a frugal heart, and so I don't want to get rid of the ones that I have that are useful to me just so I can get new ones that are linkable, but I found some that were very similar. So I will just go ahead and add that link for the leaf dies section for scrapbook.com, and you can check there and see if there is one that inspires you to be creative. So let's get started on this arrangement. I have these kind of larger layered branches, and they came from Cartabella. I'm gonna add them as more of a larger flourish, and I'm going to also add 2 of the 3-layer flowers that I just shared with you. And I think that will really help to fill in that amount of space. I'm going to add a couple of other details to these before we add them. And so I want to include some finishing details, such as netting. And I always get mine from the Dollar Tree. They have a lot of different colors available, and so I really tend to gravitate toward the gold and silver for most of the not holiday projects. And so I'm just cutting off a chunk of that, and I'll cut that in half. I'm going to use this piece of placemat here. It works really well as a non-stick surface, so I can add all of my layers together and then just pull them off as one unit. And I do like to fold my netting so that I'm bringing the point up, and then I'll fold it in the middle so that I get that nice tattered edge. I will add hot glue to this. And then stick that down and work those layers apart a little bit before it truly sets up. I'll do one of those for each of these leaves. Then I also want to include some loopy twine bows. I definitely want to fold that in half and add my adhesive. I'll add these and then shape them again before that glue sets up so that I have all of those loops going exactly where I want them. I'll come back in and cut off the excess string, and then I'll repeat that for this set as well. And you can see how easy that is to pull off of the placemat now. I'll pull that card back in and I'll arrange these so that I know I'll be able to fit them all in without covering too much of that printable. And then I will adhere these to each other. You see how that will work. I always like to create my arrangements off project so that I know I'm going to get each individual layer exactly where I want it. And I'll connect these two. Kind of at an angle there. And you can see how well that's going to fit. There's one last step to add before we adhere this to the card. I want to add this pretty little bow. I made this with the gold wrinkle ribbon, and just as I did the other layers, I'm going to put these loops where I want them to fall before I even glue them to the flower. So you see I'm going to add my glue here, and then all those loops will be right where I want them. Just press those into place from the back, and you see that will finish off this arrangement and then help to fill that in. So I'm just going to add this with hot glue, and that's going to be all for our first card. And you can see I did add some sequins here for extra detail and a pretty little bee charm. For the second card, I'm going to work with the Slimline profile. I really love to create these cards. I know I don't make them often enough, but it gives me enough room here for additional details. And I want to include 2 flower arrangements for this card because I have plenty of room for that. So remember when we first separated those flowers and I said that you could save those smaller layers and add them together to create a smaller flower. And so we're going to add those for this card. And of course we have 2 arrangements. I have my die cut leaves here, and I did use different shades of green so that they would be very noticeable layering flowers. I'm just pinch pleating those a little bit for some extra dimension. Then I will add that second layer. I'll repeat that for this one. Now remember I said I did not have specific links for these dies because I've had them in my stash for so long, but I will link that scrapbook.com leaf category, and you may have more patience than I do to go through all of the different options, but they were so many that were very similar. I know that you could find something that will work perfectly, or maybe you even already have something in your stash that would be comparable. You just want some different sizes so that you can create a nice full arrangement. Now I'm going to repeat on this arrangement how I folded up my netting so that all the points would come to the top. This is such a nice way to add a little filler and a little sparkle. I'm going to add that to both of these sets. And then once again, we will add our loopy twine bows and pull them off of our mat. This will last a really long time, and I was able to get many of them from one placemat from the Dollar Tree. So $1.25 will go a long way in saving your work surface. Now let's bring our card base back in and I'll show you the plan for this. Now, because we have more room on the top and the bottom, I can put those two arrangements. And to me, it makes sense to have the arrangement with two flowers at the bottom. And so this will kind of anchor this portion. So I'll do that. And then I'll add the second arrangement here at the top. So let's start adhering these flowers together. For the smaller flower, I added only 5 of the stamens, and that seems to be a better quantity for that smaller space. Now I'll add my leaves. This one has only 1 flower and 1 leaf set, so we'll just attach those. Because I have 2 arrangements here, I also created 2 of the bows from the Wrinkle ribbon, and I'll repeat the folding of these loops before I add them to the backs of the flowers. This Wrinkle ribbon comes from Really Reasonable Ribbon as well. And I've got all of my loops exactly spaced out where I want them. For the bottom here, I want to incorporate a couple of these little charms, and I will hide that string underneath my flowers. Cut the excess string and then add my flowers to the top. This Fairy Friends printable has quite a few different colors in it, so you're going to be able to work with some beautiful blues and yellows and pinks, and that will coordinate with the fairies in the images. So let's put one more bow here on our second arrangement. Can see one of my tails is a tiny bit too long, so I do want to clip that before I add it. Now add that to the top. And that is going to be my Slimline card. That's it for our flower tutorial for today. If you're interested in the Magnolias, the stamens, or the trims from Really Reasonable Ribbon, I'll link those in the description, as well as the Fairy Friends printable from my shop and all of our socials as well. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to let me know in the comments and leave me a big thumbs up for this video. If you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe and join my crafty little family. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. Bye.